Hello, my name is Angela, and I am 28 years old. 3 years ago, my grandfather passed away. He was the only person in my family who truly understood me. Growing up, he was like a lighthouse in a storm, guiding me with his kindness and wisdom. Losing him left a hole in my heart, but I never imagined that his death would also tear apart what little peace I had in my family. Before he passed, my grandfather made it clear in his will that he wanted me to have his house and the small garage behind it. He always said the house was my future and that I could build a life for myself there. It was a modest home, but it was full of memories and love. To me, it was more than just bricks and wood. It was a symbol of everything he worked for. After the funeral, my parents and older sister, Michelle, came to me. At first, I thought they were grieving, just like I was. But I quickly realized they had other plans. They told me that the house should belong to the family and not just me. I tried to stand my ground, reminding them that the house was left to me in the will, but they were relentless. My mother accused me of being selfish. My father warned me not to make things difficult, and Michelle rolled her eyes, saying I didn't deserve such a big responsibility. Eventually, the pressure became too much. I didn't have the resources or the strength to fight them, and they knew it. They took the house from me, leaving me only the old garage. I was devastated. It wasn't just about the house, it was about losing the one thing my grandfather wanted me to have. But I moved on, or at least I tried. The garage wasn't much, just a tiny space filled with my grandfather's old tools, boxes, and a dusty workbench. It was cold in the winter and scorching hot in the summer, but it was all I had. I spent my days cleaning out the garage, trying to make it livable. One day, while sorting through an old wooden chest in the corner, I noticed a hidden compartment. My heart raced as I opened it, and inside was a small, folded letter. My hands trembled as I held it, recognizing my grandfather's handwriting on the front. The letter was addressed to me, and I felt a lump in my throat as I opened it. Little did I know, what was written inside would change my life forever. My hands shook as I unfolded the letter, revealing my grandfather's familiar handwriting. It felt like he was speaking to me from beyond the grave, and my heart swelled with a mix of sadness and hope. The letter began with words of love and encouragement. My dear Angela, if you are reading this, it means I am no longer with you. I know you've always felt alone in the family, and I want you to know how much I believe in you. You are stronger and smarter than you realize. Never let anyone convince you otherwise. Tears streamed down my face as I read his words. He had always believed in me, even when no one else did. Then the letter took a turn, revealing something I didn't expect. Angela, I have a secret to share with you. The house and garage were not the only things I left behind. Years ago, I made a private investment, a piece of land in the countryside. It may not seem like much now, but I believe it holds great potential. I purchased it in your name. The documents are hidden in this garage, taped under the old workbench. My breath caught in my throat. A piece of land? I had no idea. I looked toward the workbench, which was piled high with tools and boxes. The letter continued. I trust you to decide what to do with it, Angela. Whether you sell it, develop it, or hold on to it for the future, the choice is yours. I hope it will give you the fresh start you deserve. Always remember, I am proud of you. I clutched the letter to my chest, overwhelmed with emotions. My grandfather had thought ahead, knowing the family might try to take what he left for me. He had planned for this moment, and his foresight was now my lifeline. Wasting no time, I rushed to the workbench and began clearing it off. Tools clattered to the ground, and a cloud of dust rose as I pulled away boxes and loose boards. Finally, I found a thick envelope taped securely to the underside of the workbench. Inside were the property documents, complete with my name on them. I couldn't believe it. My grandfather had ensured I still had something of value, something that no one could take away. For the first time in months, I felt a glimmer of hope. This land could be my chance to rebuild my life, to create something entirely my own. But I also knew I couldn't trust my family with this secret. If they found out, they would do everything in their power to take it from me. As I carefully packed the documents away, a new determination settled in my heart. My grandfather's faith in me gave me the strength I needed. I wasn't going to let his efforts go to waste. The next morning, I woke up with a plan forming in my mind. For the first time in a long while, I felt a sense of purpose. I needed to visit the land my grandfather had left for me. But first, I had to make sure the documents were safe. I took the envelope and hid it in the safest place I could think of, a locked toolbox buried under a pile of old spare parts in the corner of the garage. It wasn't perfect, but it would do for now. With my documents secure, I grabbed the keys to my car, a beat-up sedan that had seen better days, and started my journey to the address listed in the paperwork. The land was about an hour outside of town, in a quiet countryside area. The drive gave me time to think about everything that had happened. My parents and sister had taken so much from me, but they couldn't take this. When I arrived, I was stunned. The property was more beautiful than I had imagined. It was a wide open space with rolling hills, a few scattered trees, and the faint outline of a small creek running along one edge. The air was fresh and filled with the sound of chirping birds. Standing there, I could almost hear my grandfather's voice telling me to be strong. This land wasn't just a piece of property, it was a second chance. I spent hours walking around, exploring every inch of the place. I began to dream of what I could do with it. Maybe I could build a small home, or even start a business. The possibilities seemed endless. But as much as I wanted to celebrate this discovery, I knew I had to be careful. My family didn't know about the land, and I planned to keep it that way. If they found out, they would find a way to take it from me, just like they did with the house. When I got back to the garage later that evening, I was exhausted but hopeful. For the first time in years, I felt like I had control over my future. I spent the night researching what I could do with the land and making a list of all the steps I needed to take to protect it legally. The next day, my parents paid me an unexpected visit. My heart sank when I saw their car pull up in front of the garage. I quickly hid the property documents before opening the door. "Angela," my mother said with a sweet tone that I knew was fake, "we've been worried about you. How are you holding up?" I crossed my arms and leaned against the doorframe. "I'm fine. What do you need?" My father frowned, clearly annoyed by my bluntness. "Is that any way to talk to us? We're family." Family. The word felt hollow coming from him. "You made it clear what family means to you when you took the house," I said coldly. My mother's smile faltered. "We're not here to argue about the past. We were just wondering if you found anything interesting in the garage. You know, your grandfather had a lot of old things lying around. Maybe something of value." My stomach dropped. Did they suspect something? I forced myself to stay calm. "No, just old tools and junk. Nothing worth mentioning." They exchanged a glance, and I knew they didn't believe me. "Well," my father said, "if you do find anything, let us know. After all, it's only fair that the family shares it." I clenched my fists. "Sure. If I find anything, you'll be the first to know," I lied. As they left, I felt a surge of anger. They couldn't take this from me. Not this time. After my parents left, I couldn't shake the feeling that they were up to something. Their sudden interest in the garage didn't feel like a coincidence. I realized I needed to act fast to protect what my grandfather had left for me. That evening, I gathered the documents from their hiding place and made copies. I stashed the originals in a safety deposit box at the local bank, a place where my family couldn't reach them. It gave me a sense of security, knowing the land was legally protected and out of their grasp. Over the next few days, I focused on learning everything I could about the property. I visited the local county office to verify the ownership records and ensure everything was in my name. To my relief, everything checked out. I was officially the owner of a beautiful piece of land. One evening, as I returned to the garage after another trip to the property, I found Michelle standing outside, waiting for me. "What are you doing here?" I asked, trying to hide my frustration. "I just wanted to check on you," she said, her voice dripping with false concern. "You've been so distant lately. We're worried about you." I narrowed my eyes. "You're not worried about me, Michelle. What do you want?" She sighed dramatically and leaned against the garage door. "Look, I know you're upset about the house. But let's be honest, you weren't ready for that kind of responsibility. Mom and Dad were just trying to help." "Helps?" I snapped. By taking away the one thing Grandpa wanted me to have. She shrugged. You'll understand someday. Anyway, I was just wondering if you've come across anything interesting here. Grandpa used to tinker with all kinds of things. Who knows what treasures he might have left behind. There it was, the real reason she was here. Nope, nothing but old tools and junk, I said, my voice firm. Michelle studied me for a moment, as if trying to decide whether I was lying. Finally, she shrugged. Well, if you do find something, don't forget who your family is. As she walked away, I felt a wave of relief, but it was short-lived. My family was clearly fishing for something, and I needed to stay one step ahead of them. The next morning, I met with a local contractor to discuss my plans for the land. I decided to build a small cabin on the property, something simple but comfortable. It would be my sanctuary, far away from my family's drama. As the weeks passed, the construction began, and I poured all my energy into the project. Watching the cabin take shape gave me a sense of pride and independence that I hadn't felt in years. But my family's visits didn't stop. Every few days, one of them would drop by, pretending to check on me while subtly prying for information. I kept my answers vague, never letting on that I was building a new life for myself. One evening, my parents and Michelle showed up together. Their expressions were serious, and I knew they weren't here for friendly chat. Angela, we need to talk, my father said, stepping into the garage without waiting for an invitation. I crossed my arms. About what? My mother chimed in, her voice sharp. We know you're hiding something. You've been acting strange ever since Grandpa passed. If there's something valuable here, you need to share it with the family. It's only fair. I stared at them, my anger bubbling to the surface. Fair? Like how it was fair when you took the house and left me with nothing. We didn't leave you with nothing, Michelle snapped. You got the garage, didn't you? I laughed bitterly. The garage. That's all I was worth to you? My father's face hardened. This isn't about the past. If there's something here, we deserve to know. Grandpa's legacy belongs to all of us. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to stay calm. There's nothing here. Just tools and memories. If you don't believe me, you're welcome to search. They exchanged glances, clearly frustrated but unsure of how to respond. After a tense silence, my father muttered, "Let's go," and they left. As their car disappeared down the street, I felt a mix of anger and relief. They didn't find out about the land, but I knew this wasn't over. The confrontation with my family lingered in my mind for days. It was clear they weren't going to give up easily. I had to be ready for whatever they might do next. My grandfather's words echoed in my head. "You are stronger than you realize." I decided it was time to take the final step to secure my independence. The cabin on the property was nearly finished, and I was ready to move in. I packed up the few belongings I had in the garage and made arrangements to quietly leave without informing my family. Early one morning, before anyone could notice, I loaded my things into my car and drove to the land. As I stepped onto the property and saw the completed cabin, I felt a wave of peace wash over me. This was mine, a place where I could finally feel safe. I unpacked my belongings, arranging them carefully in my new home. It wasn't much, but it was a start. Standing in the middle of the cabin, I smiled for the first time in what felt like forever. But I knew my family would notice my absence soon enough. I wasn't running away. I was simply choosing a better life for myself. A week after moving into the cabin, I received an unexpected letter in the mail. It was from my grandfather's lawyer. My stomach churned as I opened it, unsure of what it might contain. The letter explained that my grandfather had left additional instructions in his will, specifically regarding the property. It turned out he had foreseen potential conflicts with my family. The letter outlined steps I could take to legally protect the land, ensuring it couldn't be contested or taken from me. Included with the letter was a legal document requiring my signature. Once signed, it would officially seal the land as my sole property, immune to any challenges. I felt a rush of gratitude for my grandfather's foresight and wasted no time completing the process. It didn't take long for my family to notice I had left the garage. One evening, as I sat on the porch of my cabin, I saw a car pull up the dirt road. My heart sank when I recognized my parents and Michelle stepping out. They marched toward the cabin with determined expressions. "So, this is where you've been hiding," Michelle said, looking around with a mix of curiosity and disdain. I stood my ground, my arms crossed. "I'm not hiding. I'm living my life." My mother scoffed. "This land. How did you afford it?" Grandpa didn't say anything about this in his will. I met her gaze, my voice steady. "Grandpa left this land to me. It's mine legally and rightfully. There's nothing you can do about it." My father stepped forward, his face red with anger. "You think you can just cut us out like this? We're your family." "You stopped being my family the day you took the house from me," I said, my voice unwavering. "This land was Grandpa's gift to me, and I'm not giving it up." Michelle tried a different tactic, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "Angela, we're just trying to look out for you. Managing land like this is a big responsibility. Maybe we can help." I shook my head. "I don't need your help. I'm doing just fine on my own." Realizing they weren't going to get what they wanted, they resorted to insults and accusations. But I refused to let them intimidate me. For the first time in my life, I felt truly strong. After that day, my family stopped coming around. I think they finally realized I wasn't going to give in. Life at the cabin wasn't always easy, but it was mine. Every step I took toward building a better future felt like a victory, a tribute to my grandfather's belief in me. Standing on the porch one evening, watching the sunset over the hills, I whispered a quiet, "Thank you," to my grandfather. His love and wisdom had given me the strength to stand up for myself and carve out a life of my own. I wasn't just surviving anymore, I was thriving.